incursion by the Israelis. We're joined from Jerusalem now by the Prime Minister's chief spokesman, Mark Regev. Good evening to you. So have you actually invaded Gaza this evening?
We have sent in ground forces. An incursion, I think, is probably the better word. The focus of this ground operation is to deal with what might sound strange to a British audience, but terrorist tunnels. We have along the border between Gaza and Israel a whole series of tunnels where terrorists have been digging these tunnels for quite some time, and they use them to send these terrorist squads into Israel to cause mayhem, to kill people, and it's something that's unacceptable. Just this morning, we intercepted some 13 heavily armed terrorists with machine guns and explosives, with rocket-propelled grenades, anti-tank weapons, that had entered Israel through one of these tunnels. And so we're working primarily now in the border area to deal with this threat of these tunnels.
Is that it then? Is that as far as you will go? Is it simply the border area? Can the residents of Gaza City and the remaining Gaza Strip rest assured that you're not going any further into the territory?
At the moment, the operation is focused, the ground operation is focused on the tunnels. The air operation against Hamas targets, against missiles, against arsenals of missiles, against rocket launchers, against Hamas command and control, all that continues as before.
By air or by ground offensive?
Yes. No, that part is continuing by air and by sea. I mean, ultimately, it's important to remember this conflict has been going on for 10 days. And in that period of time, some 1,500, I repeat that, 1,500 rockets have been fired from Gaza into Israel. They've been targeting our cities, they've been targeting our civilian population. And we are acting to protect our civilians, to protect our country from these attacks.
We know only too well this has been going on for 10 days. We know also that more than 200 Palestinians have been killed, including, as we saw yesterday, four boys playing innocently on the beach. Do you feel responsible for those Palestinian deaths? Do you apologise to those Palestinian families who've lost loved ones?
I can say our president, Shimon Peres, did apologise publicly. We weren't trying to target those four boys. It was a tragic accident, an unfortunate tragic accident. We've said so publicly. But the operation today, though, is to deal with that terrorist infrastructure, the terrorists who are shooting rockets at Israel. The people of Gaza are not our enemies. Those four boys were not our enemy, and their death was a tragedy. Our enemy are the people shooting rockets into Israel, the terrorists who are trying to kill our people. And I'd ask you, what country on this planet would sit by idly and see its civilian population over a 10-day period targeted by 1,500 rockets? I think any member of the United Nations would, any population would demand of its government that it take action to protect its civilian population. And that's exactly what we're doing.
There are reports tonight, and perhaps you can confirm them, that 18,000 more reservists, Israeli reservists, are being called upon. Are you preparing for a long fight?
We have to be prepared for any eventuality. That's obvious. We don't underestimate Hamas's power. Hamas, over the last few years, with the help of Iran and the Syrians and others, has built up a formidable military machine that was demonstrated clearly by their ability to launch rockets deep into Israel, hitting the center of our country, cities like Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. So we don't in any way underestimate the threat that Hamas poses, and that's why we've called up reservists. That's why we're taking the steps we're taking. I want to stress, the decision tonight to send in ground forces to deal with the tunnels was not taken lightly. We understand the risks involved, both for our own people, our own forces on the ground who are now in harm's way, and of course the chances for civilian people getting caught up in the fighting, something we seek to avoid. But the decision was taken.
You have to understand, by taking this decision, though, that any chance of a ceasefire has gone out of the window. You've seen the response from Hamas this evening, who says it's utterly foolish, your actions are utterly foolish and will have severe repercussions.
I think that's a bit ironic coming from Hamas, because had Hamas agreed to the ceasefire yesterday or the day before, we wouldn't be here now. This operation is only happening because Hamas rejected the ceasefire proposal of Egypt, a proposal supported by the United Nations, supported by the Arab League. Not organizations traditionally friendly to Israel, as you know, but they supported that ceasefire proposal, as did the Palestinian government of President Mahmoud Abbas. Hamas alone stood against the ceasefire. Hamas alone torpedoed the chance for a ceasefire, and now Hamas is paying the price.
Mark Regev, the Israeli Prime Minister's chief spokesman, joining us from Jerusalem. Thank you. Well, that is one element